The great hall of the Galactic Coalition fell silent as the holographic display showed another system falling to darkness. Commander Velrus of the Velnari Empire stood before the council, his blue skin pale with worry. 300 years of peace were crumbling before their eyes. The Drevik swarm has taken the Krova system, Velrus announced, his voice heavy. That makes 12 systems in 4 months. Our fleets cannot stop them. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Beings from dozens of worlds watched the display with growing fear. The Draviks were unlike any enemy they had faced before. They moved like a single mind, consuming everything in their path. Ships, stations, entire planets disappeared into their mass of living vessels. Our weapons barely scratch their ships, said General Corthan, a massive creature covered in scales. Their biology adapts too quickly. What destroys one ship becomes useless against the next wave. We must retreat to the core world, someone suggested. Build a final defense line there. And abandon billions of citizens? Velrus shook his head. That is not acceptable. An old keeper of records, a small being named Tillis, raised a trembling hand. There are old stories. Legends from before the coalition formed. This is no time for children's tales, Corthan growled. Please let him speak, Velrus said. Tillis stood, his voice thin but clear. 400 years ago there were others in the galaxy. The records call them humans. They came from a blue world in the Outer Rim. They fought in the border wars, turning impossible battles. Then they vanished. Some say they ascended to higher dimensions. Some say they destroyed themselves. But the old texts describe them as unstoppable. Myths, Corthan spat. We found ruins on a few dead worlds. Empty colonies. Whatever these humans were, they are gone. Dust and memory, perhaps, Tillis said quietly. But the legends say they always returned when needed most. The council erupted in debate. Some laughed at the idea of waiting for mythical saviors. Others argued about evacuation plans. None noticed the small signal that appeared for just 3 seconds on the long-range sensors. A signal that came from the deepest reaches of uncharted space. Far beyond the mapped territories in a region the coalition called the Dark Zone, a fleet stirred to life. The ships hung in the void like sleeping giants. They bore no markings, no identifying features. Inside the largest vessel, Captain Hune stood on the bridge studying the same battle reports the coalition was watching. They are losing badly, said Lieutenant Gina from her station. She was young, but her eyes were sharp. The swarm will reach the core worlds in 6 months at this rate. Less than that, Do-hyun called from engineering. He was covered in grease, always tinkering with something. The swarm accelerates as it grows. 4 months, maybe 3. Yuna looked up from her communications console. Still no direct contact from coalition space. But their emergency broadcasts are getting desperate. Hyun turned to face his crew. Behind him, through the massive viewport, dozens of other ships were powering up. Their engines glowed in the darkness like awakening stars. 400 years we have watched and waited. We built in secret. We prepared for the day the galaxy might need us again. Do you think they will accept our help? Gina asked. They called our ancestors too dangerous, too violent. They tried to contain us. They tried to cage us, Hyun corrected.
So our ancestors chose freedom over conflict.
We left. We vanished. Let them think we were extinct. He smiled slightly. But we never stopped watching. We never stopped caring. The question is, Do-hyun said, wiping his hands on a cloth, will they even believe we are real? To them we are ghosts. Stories told to children. A comm signal chimed. Admiral Sua's face appeared on the main screen. She was older, with lines of wisdom around her eyes. All ships, this is command. The Council of Earth has made its decision. We are going in. Hyun felt his heart beat faster. After 4 centuries of hiding, humanity would step back into the light. Acknowledged, Admiral. What are our orders? Jump to the Krova system. Coalition forces are evacuating. The swarm is close behind them. Show them that myths can bleed and fight. And if they fire on us? Gina asked. We are unknown ships appearing in their territory. Then we do what we always do, Sua said with a grim smile. We survive, we adapt. We prove ourselves through action, not words. Sua out. The bridge crew exchanged glances. This was the moment their entire lives had prepared them for. Every simulation, every drill, every lesson about the galaxy their ancestors had left behind. Now it was real. All hands prepare for jump, Hyun ordered. Engineering, I need the engines at full capacity. You will have more than that, Do-hyun promised. I have made improvements the designers never dreamed of. Navigation, plot the jump. Tactical ready all weapons systems. Weapons ready, Gina confirmed. Shields at maximum. Fighter squadron standing by. Hyun took a deep breath. In the distance, he could see the other ships of Earth's fleet. They had names that would mean nothing to the coalition. Defiant, relentless, unbroken, names that reflected the human spirit. This is Captain Hyun to all vessels. 400 years ago, our people left the galaxy because we would not bend. Today we return because the galaxy needs us. Whatever happens, remember who we are. We are humanity. We do not abandon those in need. We do not surrender to monsters. Today we remind the universe that humans are not myths. He paused. All ships jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Space twisted and folded. The dark was torn apart by brilliant flashes of light as dozens of human ships entered jump space. They were heading toward a battle, toward an enemy that had never faced anything like them. The coalition thought humans were legends, faded stories from ancient times. They were about to learn the truth. Legends were not dead memories. They were sleeping thunder, waiting for the right moment to wake. And humanity's moment had arrived. In the Crovis system, coalition ships fled in panic as the Dravik swarm closed in. Their rear guard was falling apart. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Escape pods scattered like seeds in a storm. The civilians had no chance. Then space rippled. Sensors across the coalition fleet screamed warnings. Unknown vessels were appearing right in the path of the swarm, dozens of them in perfect military formation. The ships looked strange, mixing old designs with technology that seemed impossible. On the coalition command ship, officers stared in confusion and hope. Who are they? Someone asked. On his bridge, Captain Hyun opened a channel to broadcast on every frequency. He spoke in Galactic Standard, the language all species understood. His words were simple and clear. Coalition vessels, retreat behind our line. We will hold them here. This is the Earth fleet. We have come to fight. Commander Velris stared at his display in shock. The unknown ships had appeared from nowhere, placing themselves directly between the fleeing coalition forces and the advancing Dravik swarm. It was madness. It was suicide. No fleet could survive a direct confrontation with the swarm. Sir, should we fall back? His tactical officer asked. They told us to retreat, Velris said slowly. But who are they? Run identification scans. Nothing in our database, Commander. The ship designs are completely unknown. But wait. The officer's voice rose with surprise. They are broadcasting in perfect galactic standard. They call themselves Earth Fleet. Earth? Velris searched his memory. That name is in the old archives. It was the human homeworld. But humans are extinct, sir. Gone for 400 years. Then we are watching ghost fight, Velris said quietly. Or the legends were true. The Dravik swarm rolled forward like a dark tide. Their ships were living things, grown rather than built. They moved with organic grace, splitting and reforming as needed. Thousands of biovessels stretched across space, a wall of teeth and hunger. The swarm had never lost. It could not lose. It was too many, too adaptable, too strong. The human ships did not flee. They held their line. On the bridge of his flagship, Captain Hyun watched the enemy approach. Gina analysis? Over 4,000 Dravik's vessels, she reported calmly. Multiple ship classes. They are forming an envelopment pattern. Classic swarm tactics. They want to surround us, Do-hyun called from engineering. Crush us from all sides. Then we will not let them surround us, Hyun said. All ships, attack formation Delta, fighters launch now. The human fleet suddenly burst into motion. Where coalition ships moved in careful formations, the human vessels danced. They accelerated hard, pulling maneuvers that would crush the bodies of most species. Inside, the human crews endured forces that would kill others, their augmented bodies holding together through sheer biological stubbornness. From launch bays on every ship, small fighters poured into space. Lieutenant Minho led his squadron into the dark. His call sign was Reaper, and he had earned it through countless simulations. Today would be his first real battle. Reaper Squadron, form on me, he called. Remember your training. These things are tough, but they can die. Target the node clusters on each vessel. Go for speed and precision. The fighters screamed toward the swarm. Behind them, the larger human ships opened fire. But coalition observers gasped at what they saw. These were not energy weapons, not the clean beams and plasma bolts the galaxy relied on. These were missiles, kinetic rounds, old-fashioned metal and explosive chemistry. Are those chemical propellants? A coalition officer asked in disbelief. They are using primitive weapons, another said. They will be destroyed. But the primitive weapons struck with devastating effect. The Dravix bioships had adapted to energy shields and plasma fire. They had never encountered solid metal slugs moving at a fraction of light speed. The kinetic rounds punched through their organic hulls like hammers through paper. Missiles slammed into their bodies and detonated inside, tearing them apart from within. Minho lined up his first target, a medium-sized Dravix vessel that looked like a massive insect. His targeting computer locked on. Fox 3, he said calmly, firing his missiles. They corkscrewed through space, their guidance systems immune to the biological interference the Dravix used against smart weapons. They struck the node clusters and the Dravix ship shuddered and died. That is one, Minho said. Keep moving, Reapers. Never sit still. The fighters wove through the battle like silver needles, too fast for the swarm to catch. When Dravix vessels tried to grab them with tentacle-like extensions, the human pilots simply accelerated harder or flipped their ships in maneuvers that defied physics. On the flagship, Do-Yun was sweating. Captain, the engines are at 120%. The manual says this will cause core failure. Do you believe the manual? Hyun asked. I wrote half the manual, sir. I know where it is wrong. Do-Yun grinned. We can push to 140% before real danger. Then do it. Gina, target their command nodes. Yuna, keep all channels open. I want the coalition to see everything. The human ships drove deeper into the swarm. They did not rely on shields alone. When Dravix weapons struck their hulls, the armor absorbed the impact. When holes were torn in the hull, automatic seals closed them. When systems failed, backups activated. The human design philosophy was simple: redundancy and resilience. Nothing on a human ship was single-point failure. They fight like they expect to be damaged, Velrus observed, watching from his command ship. Every other fleet tries to avoid all damage. They accept it and keep fighting. The battle turned into a brutal close-range fight. Human ships maneuvered alongside Dravix vessels, pouring fire into them at point-blank range. The swarm tried to adapt, tried to counter these strange tactics, but adaptation took time, and humans did not give them time. Admiral Sua watched the battle from her command center deep in the fleet. Reports flowed across her screens. 2 human ships damaged but still fighting. 3 Dravix command nodes destroyed. The swarm was reeling, confused by an enemy that fought in ways it had never seen. They are not retreating, Sua's tactical officer said. The swarm always wins by overwhelming force. They do not know what to do when the enemy attacks back. No species has directly assaulted them before, Sua said. Everyone relies on shields and long-range fire. We fight differently. We get close. We hit hard. We do not stop. Minho's squadron was deep in the swarm now, surrounded by enemy vessels. Reaper 3 is hit. Someone called. Stay calm, 3. Punch out if you need to, Minho ordered. He could see his wingman's fighter trailing atmosphere. But the pilot kept flying, kept fighting. That was the human way. You fought until you could not fight anymore, and then you fought a little more. Negative, Reaper lead, 3 responded. I still have guns. I still have 1 missile. I am still in this fight. Minho felt pride surge through him. All Reapers form a screen. We are going for the big one. He targeted the largest Dravix vessel in the area, a massive bioship that seemed to be coordinating the others. Multiple passes, all weapons. Make it count. The fighters dove on the command ship like hawks on prey. Missiles and cannon fire tore into its body. It thrashed and screamed, a sound that could not travel through space but that every human pilot felt in their bones. Then it broke apart, and the smaller Dravix vessels around it suddenly became disorganized. That is their weakness, Captain Yun realized. Kill the command nodes and the rest lose coordination. All ships focus fire on the largest vessels. Ignore the small ones. The human fleet adjusted its tactics instantly. That was another human advantage. They could think for themselves, adapt in real time. The coalition military was organized and efficient, but it relied on rigid doctrine. Humans thrived in chaos. Within an hour, the impossible happened. The Dravix swarm began to retreat. For the first time in its campaign of destruction, it turned away from battle. The human fleet had held. More than that, they had won. On coalition ships, crews stood in stunned silence. The sensors did not lie. The swarm was fleeing. The unknown vessels, these ghosts calling themselves humans, had done what no one else could do. They had stopped the unstoppable. Captain Hyun allowed himself a moment of relief. Then he opened channels to the Coalition fleet. This is Captain Hyun of Earth Fleet to Coalition forces. The immediate threat has passed. We have medical supplies and repair drones if you need assistance. Velrus found his voice. This is Commander Velrus. We thank you. But we must know. Who are you, really? Are you truly human? The humans of legend? Hyun smiled, though Velrus could not see it. We are the descendants of those who left 400 years ago. Our ancestors chose exile over war with the Coalition. But we never forgot you. We never stopped watching. And when we saw you needed help, we came. But why? Velrus asked. After what was done to your people, why help us? Because it is right, Hyun said simply. Because the innocent do not deserve to die for the mistakes of the past. Because we are all children of the same stars in the end. Admiral Sua's face appeared on Coalition screens. She was old, scarred, and her eyes were kind but hard. This is Admiral Sua, commander of Earth's hidden fleet. We have much to discuss, Commander Velrus. But first we have a war to win. The Coalition Central Station orbited a beautiful green world at the heart of known space. For 300 years, it had been a symbol of peace and cooperation. Now it was a war room filled with desperate leaders trying to save their civilization. When the human ships arrived, escorting a single diplomatic vessel, every sensor in the system locked onto them with a mixture of fear and hope. Ambassador Nari stepped from her ship onto the station. She was middle-aged, with gray in her dark hair and the calm confidence of someone who had prepared for this moment her entire life. Behind her walked 2 guards in light armor, their faces neutral but their eyes constantly scanning. The Coalition greeting party stood frozen, unsure how to react. I am Ambassador Nari of Earth, she said in perfect galactic standard. Thank you for allowing us to dock. I know this must be strange for you. Commander Velrus stepped forward. He had been chosen to speak because he had witnessed the battle at Krovis. Ambassador, welcome. We have many questions. I imagine you do, Nari said with a slight smile. Shall we speak somewhere more comfortable than a docking bay? They gathered in the council chamber, the great hall where species from across the galaxy met. Nari stood before them alone but unafraid. Behind her, holographic displays showed Earth's fleet maintaining position outside the station. A reminder that humanity had returned with power. 400 years ago, Nari began, my ancestors came to this galaxy with hope. They found the Coalition and sought to join. At first, things went well. Humans helped fight in the border wars. But then the Coalition Council made a decision. They declared humanity too aggressive, too unpredictable. They said humans could not be trusted with freedom. Tillis, the old record keeper, nodded slowly. I have read the old reports. The Council tried to place restrictions on human expansion. They wanted to monitor human colonies, control human military development. They wanted to cage us, Nari said without anger, just stating fact. So our leaders faced a choice. Fight the entire Coalition for our freedom or leave. They chose to leave. Humanity vanished into uncharted space. We found empty systems, dead worlds, places no one wanted. We built there. In secret, in silence. We watched you through long-range sensors, studied your languages and cultures, but we did not make contact. General Corthan stood, his massive form towering over the others. Why? If you had such capabilities, why hide? Why not return and take vengeance for the insult? Because vengeance is empty, Nari replied. Our ancestors were angry, yes, but they were also wise. They knew that forcing themselves on the Coalition would only prove the Council right. So they built a new civilization hidden in the dark, and they taught their children and their children's children that one day the galaxy might need us. When that day came, we would help. Not for revenge, not for glory, but because it was right. A small being from the technical species raised a tentacle. Your ships use impossible technology. Energy systems we do not recognize. Maneuverability that should kill any organic crew. How? Dr. Taeyang stepped forward. He was an elderly man with kind eyes and hands stained from decades in laboratories. May I, Ambassador? Please, Nari gestured. Taeyang activated a holographic display. Human technology developed differently because we had different constraints. The Coalition has access to rare elements, exotic matter. We did not, so we made do with what we had. We combined old and new, chemical propulsion for reliability, exotic energy for power. We built systems that could take damage and keep working. We designed for survival, not perfection. And your crews? Someone asked.
How do they survive those forces?
Human biology is remarkably adaptable, Taeyang explained. Over 400 years, we enhanced ourselves. Not with machines, but with genetic improvements. Our bones are stronger. Our blood carries oxygen more efficiently. Our nervous systems react faster. We did not try to become something else. We simply became better versions of human. Scientist Sora approached a young woman with bright eyes. With your permission, I would like to demonstrate. At Nari's nod, she held out her hand. Then she punched the solid metal podium. The metal dented. Her hand did not break. Human durability. We can survive injuries that would kill most species. We heal faster. We endure longer. The council members murmured in amazement and concern. This was beyond their understanding. Humans were not just surviving. They were thriving in conditions that should have destroyed them. Commander Ji-hoon stepped forward next. He was lean and scarred, with eyes that had seen too much combat. Your military tactics rely heavily on shields and long-range weapons. This works well against conventional enemies. But the Draviks adapt to energy weapons. They disrupt targeting systems. Your doctrine leaves you vulnerable when shields fail. And human doctrine? Velrus asked. We assume everything will fail, Ji-hoon said bluntly. Shields will break. Weapons will jam. Ships will be damaged. So we prepare for the worst. We train in hand-to-hand combat. We practice fighting in vacuum, in toxic atmospheres, in zero gravity. We carry backup weapons, backup plans for the backup plans. When everything goes wrong, humans are still dangerous. You fight like cornered animals, Korthan observed. We fight like survivors, Ji-hoon corrected. And right now, that is what the galaxy needs. Survivors who know how to win when victory seems impossible. Nari addressed the council again. We do not ask you to trust us immediately. We know our return is shocking, but the Dravik swarm threatens all life. We propose a joint operation. Let us teach you our methods. Let your people teach us yours. Together we can create something stronger than either of us alone. And after the war, someone asked. What then? Do humans seek to dominate the coalition? We seek to join it, Nari said simply. As equals. As partners. Our ancestors left because they would not be caged. We return because we will not abandon those in need. If you accept our help, we ask only for a place at this table. Nothing more. The council erupted in debate. Some species were eager to accept. Others were cautious, fearful of human power. But they all knew the truth. Without human help, they would lose. The Dravik swarm was too strong, too vast. Traditional tactics had failed. Velrus stood. I fought at Krovis. I saw what humans can do. I vote to accept their alliance. General Korthan stood next. He had been skeptical, but he was also a warrior. He recognized capability when he saw it. I agree. We need warriors who are not afraid to bleed. I vote yes. One by one, the council voted. When the tally was complete, the alliance had passed. Humanity would join the coalition not as subjects but as partners. But even as the vote concluded, alarms began to blare. A coalition officer ran into the chamber. The swarm. They have launched a massive counterattack. 3 core worlds are under assault simultaneously. It is the largest force they have ever gathered. Nari turned to Admiral Sua's holographic image. How long until our fleet can respond? 6 hours to reach the nearest target, Sua replied. But the defenses there will fall in 3. Then we do not have a choice, Nari said. She looked at Velrus. We need a joint operation and we need it now. Your fleet and ours working together. Can it be done? Velrus smiled grimly. It will have to be. General Korthan, prepare all available forces. Ambassador, coordinate with your admiral. Today we learn if myths and reality can fight side by side. Lieutenant Gina volunteered to lead the joint task force. She had proven herself at Krovis, and she understood both human tactics and coalition capabilities. She stood on a coalition command ship, surrounded by officers from a dozen species, and felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Listen carefully, she told them. We do not have time for a long training program. I will teach you one thing, redundancy. When your shields fail, do not panic. Switch to your armor. When your armor fails, use evasive maneuvers. When your engines fail, use emergency thrusters. Never give up. Never stop fighting. Can you do that? The coalition officers looked at each other, then nodded. They were afraid, but they were also determined. The human spirit, it seemed, was contagious. Good, Gina said. Then let us go save 3 worlds. And let us show the swarm what happens when myths become real. The combined fleet launched into action. Human ships and coalition vessels flew together, their formation patterns merging into something new. In the dark of space, the Dravik swarm waited, confident in their inevitable victory. They had consumed dozens of systems. They had crushed every fleet sent against them. They did not know they were about to face an enemy that history had forgotten. An enemy that had spent 400 years preparing for exactly this moment. The swarm thought it fought legends and myths. It was about to learn that some legends carried teeth and some myths were just sleeping truths waiting to wake. The Andros system was dying. 3 coalition worlds orbited a yellow star, home to billions of souls. Now the Dravik swarm descended on them like a plague. Their bioships blocked out the stars. On the planets below, civilians huddled in shelters, praying for miracles. Lieutenant Gina stood on the bridge of the Joint Task Force flagship, watching the tactical display. Around her worked officers from 6 different species, learning to coordinate in real time. It was chaos, but it was controlled chaos. That was the human way. Enemy fleet composition? She asked. Over 8,000 Dravik's vessels, reported a Velnari tactical officer. They are massing for orbital bombardment. Time until they are in firing position? 20 minutes. Then we have 19 minutes to stop them. Gina opened channels to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Gina. You have trained hard for the past 3 hours. Now we fight for real. Remember what you learned? When things go wrong, keep fighting. When you think you cannot continue, fight harder. Today we teach the swarm that they picked the wrong galaxy to invade. The joint fleet dropped out of jump space right in the middle of the swarm formation. It was a bold move, almost suicidal. Traditional tactics said to attack from range to maintain safe distance. But humans did not believe in safe distance. All weapons fire at will, Gina commanded. The human ships opened up with their kinetic weapons and missiles. Coalition vessels added their energy beams and plasma cannons. The combined firepower was devastating. Dravik's bioships exploded by the dozens, but there were thousands more and they began to close in. On the surface of one of the planets, Marine Sergeant Junho watched the sky light up with the battle. He and his unit had been sent down ahead of the main fleet in stealthed drop pods. Their mission was simple and insane. Prepare the ground for evacuation and, if possible, disrupt the swarm from below. Sergeant, we have Dravik's landing craft coming down, reported one of his Marines. Looks like they are starting ground operations early. Junho smiled. It was not a nice smile. Good. That means they are close enough to hit. Load anti-armor rounds. Time to show these things that planets are not safe for them either. The coalition ground forces looked at the humans with confusion. They were supposed to evacuate civilians, not fight. But Junho's Marines were already setting up firing positions, preparing traps, organizing the local militia. What are you doing? Asked a coalition ground commander. We cannot fight them on the surface. We must evacuate. We will evacuate, Junho said. But we will buy time for it. Every minute we delay them is another transport that escapes. Besides, these Draviks have never fought humans on the ground. They are about to get an education. The first Dravik's warriors touched down. They were massive creatures bioengineered for combat. They moved with alien grace, their bodies covered in natural armor. They had crushed every ground force they encountered. They expected no resistance. Junho's Marines opened fire. The kinetic rounds punched through Dravik's armor. Explosive charges detonated among their formations. The creatures reeled in surprise and pain. They had not expected this. They had not expected prey that bit back so hard. Keep firing. Do not let them organize. Junho ran between positions, directing fire, encouraging his troops. A Dravik's warrior charged him directly. Junho waited until the last second, then slid under its grasping limbs and planted an explosive charge on its underside. The creature exploded, showering the area with biological matter. A coalition soldier stared. You just killed it with your bare hands. With my bare hands and 3 pounds of high explosive, Junho corrected. Come on, get up. We have work to do. The coalition soldiers found themselves inspired by the human ferocity. They stopped thinking about retreat and started thinking about fighting. This was what Jihoon had talked about. When humans fought, they made everyone around them braver. Above, in orbit, the space battle raged. Lieutenant Minho led his fighter squadron through the chaos. His pilots had been flying for hours, barely stopping to refuel and rearm. Every muscle ached. His hands trembled from adrenaline. He ignored it all. "Reaper Squadron, we have Coalition bombers inbound to target the swarm command ship," he called. "Our job is to get them through. No matter what." The bombers were big, slow Coalition vessels carrying massive warheads. They would never survive the approach alone. Minho's fighters formed a protective screen around them, intercepting every Dravik ship that got close. "Reaper 4 is hit," someone called. "Can you fly, 4? "Engines are damaged, but I am still moving. I will keep up." "Negative, 4. Drop back to the carrier." "You have done enough." "Sir, respectfully, I can still shoot. I am staying with the squadron." Minho felt his throat tighten. That was the human spirit right there. Even when broken, they kept fighting. "Understood, 4. Stay in formation. We will get you home." The bombers reached their launch point. They released their warheads, massive fusion devices that would take time to reach the target. Minho's squadron had to protect the missiles until impact. All fighters, maximum defense. Nothing gets through. The swarm threw everything at them. Hundreds of Dravik's fighters swarmed the human squadron. Minho and his pilots fought like demons, their weapons blazing, their ships dancing through deadly fire. When Reaper 4's fighter finally died, the pilot ejected, still shooting with his suit's emergency weapon until a Coalition search and rescue ship grabbed him. The warheads hit the Dravik's command ship. The explosion lit up space like a newborn star. The massive bioship broke apart and thousands of swarm vessels suddenly became confused. Their coordination shattered. "That is it," Gina shouted from the flagship. "All ships, press the attack." "They are disorganized." "Hit them now!" The joint fleet surged forward. Human vessels and Coalition ships fought side by side, covering each other's weaknesses, amplifying each other's strengths. It was not perfect. Ships were lost. Good people died. But the line held. On the planet's surface, Medical Officer Minji worked in a field hospital set up in the ruins of a building. Around her, the wounded came in a steady stream. Coalition soldiers, human Marines, even some injured civilians who had been caught in the fighting. She treated them all with equal care. "You are very good," said a Coalition medical officer watching her work. "Your techniques are different from ours." "Humans have a lot of practice with battlefield medicine," Minji said, not looking up from her patient. "We learned how to treat trauma in impossible conditions. You focus on prevention. We focus on keeping people alive after everything has gone wrong." She finished stabilizing a Velnari soldier and moved to the next patient. It was one of Junho's Marines, badly wounded by a Dravik's attack. "Stay with me," she told him. "You are going to be fine. Did we hold them?" The Marine gasped. "You held them. The evacuations are nearly complete. You saved thousands of lives." The Marine smiled and closed his eyes. Minji worked faster, her hands steady despite her exhaustion. Around her, Coalition medical staff copied her techniques, learning how humans dealt with the worst injuries. They were sharing knowledge, building trust through shared struggle. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it finally ended, the Dravik swarm retreated from all three worlds. Over half their fleet was destroyed. The Joint Task Force had won, though the cost was high. 23 human ships lost, 42 Coalition vessels destroyed, thousands dead, but 3 worlds survived. Billions of lives saved. In the aftermath, Lieutenant Gina walked through the damaged flagship. Around her, human and Coalition crew members worked together to repair systems. They shared water rations. They helped each other with injuries. They had bled together, and in bleeding together, they had become something more than separate species. Admiral Sua appeared on a communication screen. "Lieutenant, your report?" "Mission successful, Admiral. All 3 worlds are secure. The swarm is retreating to regroup." "And the Coalition forces? How did they perform?" "They learned fast, sir. They fought well. They are warriors. They just needed someone to show them how to fight when everything goes wrong." Sua nodded. "And now they know. We have shown them that myths can fight, that legends are real. What comes next will be harder. The swarm will gather its full strength. We must be ready." Gina looked out at the stars, at the planet below where Sergeant Junho and his Marines were helping with recovery efforts, where Minji was still saving lives. She thought of Minho and his squadron, battered but unbroken. She thought of all the Coalition soldiers who had learned to fight like humans. "We will be ready," she said, "human and alien fighting together. The swarm thinks it cannot lose, but it has never faced anything like us. Not alone. Not united." "No," Sua agreed. "They have not. And when we face them again, We will show them what happens when myths and reality become one. We will show them what happens when an entire galaxy refuses to die. The Coalition Intelligence Center was deep underground on the capital world. Inside, Dr. Taiyang stood before a massive holographic display, showing the Dravik swarm's movements over the past 6 months. Beside him, Coalition scientists watched nervously. Here, Taiyang pointed at the display. This is the pattern. Every swarm fleet eventually returns to this point, a dead system at the edge of the galaxy. Nothing there but a dying red star and some barren planets. We have seen this data before, a Coalition scientist said. We believed it was just a staging area. It is more than that, Taiyang insisted. Watch the energy signatures. Every time a fleet returns, the energy output from that system increases. I believe the swarm is not just a collection of ships. There is a central organism, a nexus that controls everything. Commander Velrus leaned forward. You are saying there is a brain? Kill it, and the entire swarm dies? In theory, Taiyang said carefully, but reaching it would be impossible. The swarm has pulled back all its forces to that system. Our scouts estimate over 50,000 vessels guarding it, and the nexus itself appears to be planet-sized. Admiral Sua entered the room. Behind her walked Captain Hyun, now promoted to Admiral for his actions at Crovis and Andros. Nothing is impossible, Sua said. It is just very, very difficult. You cannot be serious, General Corthan rumbled. Even with our combined fleets, we would be outnumbered 10-1. It would be suicide. It would be victory, Hyun said quietly. Or it would be death. But doing nothing means slow defeat. The swarm will rebuild, it will attack again. Eventually it will win, unless we end it now. The room fell silent. Everyone knew he was right. The joint task forces had won battles, but they were losing the war. The swarm had too many ships, too much territory. Time favored the enemy. If we commit everything to this attack and fail, we leave the core worlds defenseless, Velrus pointed out. If we do not attack and fail anyway, the result is the same, Ambassador Nari said. She had been standing quietly in the corner, but now she stepped forward. My people did not return after 400 years just to watch the galaxy burn. We came to fight. We came to win, no matter the cost. Admiral Sua pulled up fleet readiness reports. Earth can commit 300 ships. Admiral Hyun will command the human forces. The Coalition can provide 400 vessels, General Corthan said. I will lead them personally. Then we have 700 ships against 50,000, Hyun said. Those are terrible odds. I have fought worse, Sua said with a grim smile. You have never fought anything like this, Admiral, Corthan said. True, Sua admitted. But I have never had the entire Coalition fleet fighting beside me before either. Together, we will make our own odds. The preparations took 3 weeks. In shipyards across Coalition space, vessels were repaired and upgraded. Human engineers taught Coalition crews how to build redundant systems. Coalition scientists shared their shield technology with human designers. The two military philosophies merged into something new. Lieutenant Gina coordinated the tactical planning. She worked 18-hour days, reviewing simulations, planning attack patterns. The mission was simple in concept. Punch through the defensive fleet, reach the nexus, and destroy it. Simple, but not easy. Sergeant Junho trained Coalition Marines in assault tactics. When we board the nexus, it will be close quarters hell, he told them. Biological corridors, toxic atmosphere, things trying to kill you in the dark. You cannot bring heavy weapons. You cannot call for artillery. You fight with your hands, your knife, and your will to survive. Can you do that? The Coalition Marines, who had spent months fighting beside humans, learning human ways, nodded grimly. They had learned. They were ready. Lieutenant Minho prepared his fighter wings. The plan called for overwhelming the swarm's outer defenses quickly. His pilots would lead that attack. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. But when Minho asked for volunteers, every single pilot in the combined fleet stepped forward. We will clear you a path, Minho promised Admiral Hyun. Just make it count. Medical Officer Minji set up field hospitals on every capital ship. She knew the casualties would be horrific. She had trained coalition medical staff in human trauma procedures. Now they would all be tested. The Armada assembled at the jump point. 700 ships from dozens of worlds, bearing hundreds of thousands of crew members. It was the largest fleet in coalition history. On every ship, in every language, prayers were said to different gods. But they all asked for the same thing: courage, victory, and the chance to see home again. Admiral Sua stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the assembled fleet. Beside her, Admiral Hyun checked his systems one final time. "This is insane," he said. "Completely," Sua agreed. "But so is everything humanity has ever done. We are not a species that accepts defeat gracefully." "No," Hyun smiled. "We are not." The fleet jumped together, space folding as 700 ships crossed the galaxy in an instant. They emerged in the Nexus system, and the sensors immediately began screaming warnings. The Dravix fleet was even larger than estimated. Over 60,000 bioships filled the system, a wall of living vessels stretching across space. "All ships, attack formation," Sua ordered. "Remember the plan. We are not here to destroy them all. We are here to reach the Nexus. Everything else is secondary." The fleet formed a spearhead, human ships at the tip, coalition vessels protecting the flanks. They drove forward at maximum speed. The swarm moved to intercept, thousands of bioships converging on the attacking fleet. "Fighters, launch!" Minho called. From every carrier, from every ship with a flight deck, fighters poured into space. Human pilots and coalition pilots flew together, their formations mixed and integrated. They hit the swarm's first line like a hammer. The battle was chaos beyond description. Ships exploded every second. Weapons fire lit up the dark. The human vessels pushed forward, their crews enduring impossible forces, their ships taking damage that would destroy any coalition vessel and continuing to fight. "Hull breach on decks 5 through 7, someone shouted on Hyun's flagship. "Seal them and keep moving," Hyun ordered. His ship shuddered as Dravix weapons tore into it, but the redundant systems held. The engines kept running, the weapons kept firing. General Corthan's coalition vessels formed a shield wall, their advanced barriers absorbing incredible punishment. "We cannot hold this forever," he called. "You do not need forever," Hyun replied. "Just 5 more minutes." Those 5 minutes lasted an eternity. Ships died by the dozens. Minho's fighter squadron was cut to pieces, but the survivors kept flying, kept clearing the path. Finally, the breakthrough came. A gap in the swarm's defenses, just large enough. "All assault ships, go now," Sua ordered. 3 dozen ships, the fastest and most heavily armored in the fleet, broke from the formation and raced toward the Nexus. The planet-sized organism loomed ahead, a massive sphere of biological matter pulsing with alien life. On its surface, defensive installations opened fire, but the assault ships pushed through. Admiral Hyun's ship was among them. As they closed in, he could see the Nexus clearly. It was beautiful in a horrible way, a perfect example of evolved predation. But perfection had weaknesses. Dr. Taeyang had found them. "Sergeant Junho, you are up," Hyun said. In the assault ship's hangar, Junho and his combined human coalition strike team prepared for launch. 200 Marines in full combat armor, carrying enough explosives to level a city. They boarded drop pods, small armored shells designed to punch through planetary defenses. "Remember," Junho told his team, "we find the neural cluster at the core. We plant the charges. We get out. Simple." "Simple," one of the coalition Marines repeated with a nervous laugh. "I did not say easy," Junho grinned. "Let us go kill a planet." The drop pods launched, screaming down through the Nexus's atmosphere. The biological defenses tore at them, but the pods were built to survive. They crashed into the surface, and the strike teams emerged into nightmare. The interior of the Nexus was a living maze. Walls pulsed with diseased light. The air was toxic. Things moved in the shadows, bioweapons grown specifically to defend this place. The teams pushed forward, fighting every meter. Junho led the way, his weapon firing constantly. Beside him, a Velnari Marine took down a defender with a perfectly placed shot. A human soldier threw an explosive charge into a cluster of bioforms. Coalition and human fighting as one unit, covering each other, trusting each other. Above, in space, the battle was reaching its peak. The fleet was being torn apart. Over half the ships were destroyed or disabled. But they held the line, giving the strike team time. Minji worked in the medical bay of Hyun's flagship, treating an endless stream of wounded. Her hands were steady, even as the ship shook from weapons impacts. A coalition medical officer worked beside her, using human techniques to save a human pilot. They had all learned from each other. In his fighter, Minho was down to his last missiles and half his engines were dead. But he kept flying, kept shooting, kept clearing space for the assault ships. This is Reaper lead to all fighters. We do not stop, not until the job is done. Copy that, lead, came the responses. Tired voices, determined voices, human and alien, all sounding the same in that moment. Deep in the Nexus, Junho's team reached the core. It was a massive chamber, pulsing with bioelectric energy.